This is how I actually got my six-figure UX design job in tech. Hi, my name's Aliena, and if you're new here, I'm a UX designer and I'm also a UX design educator. If you're seriously thinking about transitioning your career into UI UX design because you really want to do something creative and well-paid and you don't see a future in your current career, then watch till the end. My journey of transitioning from software engineering to UX design was not easy, and I made so many mistakes in the middle. I'm going to share with you all the mistakes I made so that you don't make the same mistake. Let me start with the last part of the story, my eBay interview. By the time I got my interview at eBay, I had a polished online portfolio, I have a cleaned up resume, and a personal brand. And before I even walked into that interview, people already knew me. And I think I only spent 15 minutes preparing for that interview because I had another gig before that. And the interview came so abruptly, so I didn't even have time to process at all. And all I did was go on YouTube and search for a tutorial for eBay pay-per-click advertisement. And I watched the tutorial with double speed and just got into the Zoom and asked everyone to introduce themselves and then talk about their product. Later, the interviewer told me that out of everyone they've interviewed, I was the only person who talked about their product first. And I remember I presented just one case study. I didn't even have a PowerPoint. I was just scrolling through my portfolio website and talking about my project, and it was a mortgage company web design project. After the first round, they immediately called me in for the next round, and literally by the end of the same day, I got the offer. So honestly, this opportunity actually came so fast and easy and smooth, but it wasn't always like that. Before I dive into my full journey, I just want to say, having an online portfolio is a game changer. Something like yourname.com makes you look way more professional. And that is where today's sponsor, Hostinger, comes in. With Hostinger's AI website builder, you can build and launch your portfolio on a free domain in minutes. Super easy, super affordable. And if you use the code Aliena, you get an extra 10% off. Once you are in, click Create or Migrate. Pick For Myself. Then choose Hostinger Website Builder. Type in your dream domain to set it up. Next, tell the AI to create a UX design portfolio for you and tell it about your projects. Hit Create Website. And boom! You get a solid first draft in seconds. Of course, you can tweak anything you like to make it your own. One thing I love is that I can drag to adjust layouts for desktop and mobile. It is so easy and smooth. And it also has the little grid so things are perfectly aligned. If you click the star icon on the left, you'll find Hostinger's AI tools. They can help you write content, generate an entire page, or improve your site's SEO, that's search engine optimization, which boosts your chances of ranking higher on Google. I change up the colors, rewrote some text, and hit publish. Here's the result. I really wish I had this tool when I was starting out. So, if you are procrastinating on building a portfolio, take this as a sign. Try it out. I made the transition from computer science into UX design because I simply couldn't see myself working as a software engineer. Sure, I had a good GPA, but that GPA in CS was purely from hard work, grinding, and a lot of Googling and YouTube tutorials. Computer science just never came naturally to me, and I had no real passion for it. But we all have sunk cost bias. It is extremely difficult to give up on a path that we spent so much time and effort in. If you are in this position, just ask yourself, do you see a future in what you are doing now? Is that your dream life? My answer to computer science was a hard no. The sooner I admitted that to myself, the easier the decision became. If you ask me why I truly love design, it comes down to two things. First, I have a deep love for aesthetics, beauty, and well-designed experiences. I'm sure I got it from my dad's side. And second, and perhaps the more important one, this comes from a moment when I was 15-year-old. I left China to study abroad in Canada, which I now returned. And I left behind my grandmother who raised me. My grandmother meant the world to me. So before I left China, I bought her an iPad and taught her how to use FaceTime. From that day on, we FaceTime each other every single day. I just got off FaceTime with her. But I never forget the first time I saw her face when she realized she could see me across the ocean. She was so happy. And deep down, I knew I wanted to create similar experiences like that for more people. And back then, I didn't know it's called UX design. And in fact, the name just keeps changing. UI design, UX design, product design, growth design. But whatever the title is, for me, it's never the term that defines what this meant to me. It was always the emotion that came with that moment that defined what design meant to me. So, I don't have a design degree. Then how did I self-taught UX design? I took many courses, programs, and internships, and let me break them down. In high school, I had the opportunity to attend the Stanford University Design Summer Program, basically a summer camp for rich kids. I was not that rich, but my mom just never saved money on education. And thanks for her, I learned design thinking from Stanford University. Design thinking, however, it's very broad. And UI UX design is much more specific and takes much more hard skills. So you are not missing out that much if you haven't took a design thinking course from Stanford University. During my last year at high school, I got into UI design. I was lucky to take the IB design course, and I chose the topic of home automation UI design for my project. And my inspiration was the book, The Design of Everyday Things from Don Normand. I came up with a lot of UI design ideas similar to Apple Home Map, and I was so happy doing the work. Later, I got into Minerva University. Minerva gave me the opportunity to study in 7 different countries over 4 years. And of course, I took the opportunity. It's like the coolest thing ever in higher education. It's just pure innovation. But Minerva didn't have a design program. So I chose to double major in computer science and business. That allowed me to have 3 years STEM OPT so that I can work 3 years legally in the US after graduation, which is very important. During my first year at Minerva, I had an internship and I worked with Stanford University at Stanford Design School. And I worked on a project, Shadow a Student Challenge. My job was to bring design thinking into K-12 education. So challenging teachers to follow their student for a day to better understand the learning experience from the student's perspective. I did UX research. I did outreach. I made my first embarrassing mistake in my career. So in email templates, you need to change the name before you send out the email, right? But for our templates, there were 2 places you need to change the name for. I only remember 1. So technically, I used the same name to do the outreach for all the important school headmasters in Silicon Valley. Embarrassing, but I never made that mistake again. Next, Minerva also gave me the chance to work with startups in Tokyo. I literally flew to Tokyo for over 2 months. I also just happened to be in the luckiest class in my school that lived in a mansion in Shibuya. And I was paid 4,000 USD for 2 months with housing cover. So I think it's a good deal. And my role was UI design for a startup. It was a social cause platform, and they published news on global crisis, encouraging people to donate monthly. But because it was a startup, I just also ended up doing some other things like starting an Instagram account, outreach, LinkedIn, designing the pitch deck. And that is when I realized that if you work for a startup, the job description is just a recommendation and it is the same everywhere. You will end up doing everything anyways. But I learned a lot and I liked it. But there's one more thing I learned that may be a little bit controversial or maybe very different to you. I decided that I will not work in Asia after I graduate. And this is just because a lot of work culture in Asia have these hidden rules of weird or hierarchical power dynamic. Things like you cannot leave the office if your boss is still there. And this kind of thing just pissed me off. I want to do the work. I don't want to be there to, follow some social rules that I don't think is very valuable for the company. So I set a goal to work in Silicon Valley in the upcoming summer. And so far, I made everything sound pretty easy. Oh, I got into the university and I got the opportunities. And of course, it wasn't easy. I worked really, really hard to get all these opportunities. But I did, for sure, leverage my unfair advantage. Because all of the opportunities I got it through my university. And I want you to also analyze and discover what are some unfair advantages that you have. Instead of competing in the red ocean where everyone sent the same resume for the same role, is there anything that you have access to that I cannot access? I am sure you do, and a lot of times we take this as granted. And the next summer, I landed an internship in Silicon Valley. But the way I got it was very unconventional. So remember my Tokyo internship? I actually spent all $4,000 on first day I landed in Tokyo to buy a Sony camera. This one. But this camera paid off. At first, I started to attend every tech event after I go back to San Francisco to study. And all the events were like AI or blockchain. And I just go to those events and take a bunch of photos for people. And I use those photos to build an event photography portfolio. And then I basically outreached every single event in Silicon Valley, especially the high-ticket ones, and asking if they need a free volunteer event photographer. And I got myself into the most exclusive event in Silicon Valley, where I got to meet CEOs around the world who come to Silicon Valley to tour it and also to learn about what's happening in the digital transformation space. And that was when I was 19 years old. And I remember I was sitting in dinner tables where just right across me is the CEO of a German car company. That experience changed my life in so many different ways. And if you want to learn more about it, let me know in the comment. At that event, I met the founder of a Silicon Valley innovation consulting firm. After his speech, I sent him a cold outreach email saying that I loved his talk and I offered to intern for him during the summer. And I said that I can improve your slide decks and I can take event photos for you and I can help with UI UX design and branding and I can help you to build a website. These are my skills. Would you like me to intern for you? Who's gonna say no to that? So I worked for his firm that summer. It was unpaid at first, but then he started to pay me after he saw my value. And I gained an insane amount of experience and even better network. The next summer, one of my former coworkers from that firm reached out, and he launched a startup in New York. He needed help on designing a website for his product. It was an acoustic synthesizer. I took the offer, but I did not do a good job because I did not understand what an acoustic synthesizer means. I wasn't in New York, so I couldn't see the product firsthand, and the product was still developing. And also back then, I tried to immediately go into a web builder to build out the tool instead of, thinking about the marketing, thinking about what words to use, thinking about the structure, building a wireframe. So I didn't do a good job, but I learned my lesson. It was a huge mistake of going into design without first understanding the product and the need. And that experience forever shaped my design identity. And by the end of college, we all had to complete a capstone project. And I chose speculative design. That is similar to product design, but instead of designing for existing technology, you design for technologies that haven't matured yet. And I chose a project about the future of brain-computer interface. Neuralink just became a thing back then. And essentially, I tried to predict the future of content economy when brain-computer interaction become the new mobile phone. This is the kind of privilege you got if you go into higher education, like take a bachelor degree or take a master degree, because they allow you to do futuristic and cutting-edge projects like this. But projects like this do not give you a job opportunity. And that brings me to the next topic, which is my career job search journey. Before graduation, I had already decided to pursue a UX design job, not a programming job, but I wasn't very confident because I just felt like I never had this proper UX design education. So in order to fill in the gap, I enrolled in the newly released Google UX design certificate programs. And at the time, I thought, learning UX design from Google with such a low price, this is divine timing. And of course, I worked through the course in about 2 to 3 months, putting so much effort in doing every single exercise, which you'll probably saw from my videos. And the program really helped me to fill in many knowledge gaps. I remember I didn't even know what a persona was before enrolling to the program. I used to call a persona just a target market because I had a business degree, which just say target market. And funny enough, after I got into big tech, I have to switch back to saying target market because you work with business stakeholders. So there's a lot of very interesting things I discovered. And the Google certificate also required me to complete 3 personal UX design projects. I initially thought this was great because I assumed employers would probably value perfectly structured UX projects that follow Google's methodologies. And I thought that these projects would be more attractive than my real-world client projects because they weren't perfect. They weren't perfect clients. And I wasn't follow textbook UX process. And I was so wrong. Here's what I learned after 9 months of job rejections. Number 1, the UX design industry does not care about certifications and credentials. Number 2, client projects get you jobs. Personal projects are just cute. For 9 months, I applied nonstop. I got ghosted most of the time, rejected around 20% of the times, and it was brutal. And up until that point, I had always been a high achiever. Actually, the term is insecure high achiever. I work hard, I'm smart, I get high GPA, but the minute I start getting rejection letters, I started to doubt myself and I started to feel like an imposter. And one thing I'm so grateful for is that period of time pushed me to start my personal brand, this YouTube channel. Because honestly, this was the only thing I had control over. I do not need anyone's permission to publish a YouTube video, and that is exactly why I did that. However, I want to clarify that starting a personal brand is not for everyone. It is for me because I am naturally good at making videos. So what you need to do is analyze your unfair advantages and strengths and use your natural strength to cut through the competition. Now let's talk about the interviews I did got during the 9 months of job hunt. The first interview I landed was with LinkedIn China. I already said that I didn't want to go back to Asia, but that's the only opportunity I got, so of course I took the interview. And I remember that I had a really good conversation with the interviewer. He really respected me. We had a good discussion. The vibe was perfect. And I also did a take-home project. I put in so much effort, made it so extra, and I handed it in. And then right after that, LinkedIn China got dissolved. They are banned in China. So, of course, there's no more job for me. Not just for me, also not for everyone in that company anymore. And that was just like so heartbroken for me for sure. The next interview I got was with Slack. I prepared so hard for this one, but just minutes before the interview, the recruiter called me and told me that the role was just taken by someone else. No more interview again. And the next one was WeWork. I went into the interview, I presented my case study, but the interviewer pretty much took me as a joke. He was like, "So are these some of the projects you did with startups?" And I was like, "Oh, these are some personal projects I did from my UX design certification course with Google and Coursera." And he was like, "I am not sure why you are here. Maybe we have some misunderstanding here. We are looking for someone with B2B design experiences." And that hurt me so much. But honestly, looking back, I could see his reasoning because, personal projects are indeed a little bit too cute and naive if you want to work with B2B products, right? That's why I was saying, get client projects, get those constraints. Don't do the perfect procedure and the perfect methodology thing. That is not how things are done in these companies. You gotta work toward actual business goals. And I also applied for a fellowship. I remember I made 2 videos around that, worked really hard, but rejected again. And then I also applied for the master program at University of Washington. It was the Human-Computer Interaction program. It was really, really good. Rejected again. But joke on them, because now I'm the guest lecturer of that program and they use my videos to teach their classes. And then I got an interview at Google, and the first 2 rounds was really good. And actually at that time, my boyfriend, now turned husband, he also just got his job offer at Google Seattle. If you can do it, then I can do it. And the Google interview, there were 2 rounds in the beginning, but then there are 4 rounds in the same day after that. But between that, because I was too confident and also our lease just ended, we just decided to drive to Seattle and move to a new city. And the gap between those 2 rounds of interviews were a bit long, and I just keep preparing for that final rounds of interview. And I ended up overdoing it. It was like a 30 minutes presentation, but I squeezed 3 projects in that because I just want to justify myself and prove that I got what it takes to do the work. But it really went backfired because from the interviewer perspective, it is just another meeting for them on a Friday afternoon, and they don't have the energy to listen to someone talking about 3 personal projects that have nothing to do with what they are building. I also didn't ask them questions. I didn't ask anyone in the room to introduce themselves. I was just doing a one-way presentation. I got rejected. And that rejection also made me realize that even if I think I do have the skills to work in big tech, I don't have the package to get into big tech. And these are 2 very different things. So instead of just keep applying, I slowed down the application, focused on getting more real-world client work first. And I kept making YouTube videos. And one startup reached out to me, and it was like a mortgage company startup looking for a website. And I did the work for them. I had to wake up at 6 or 7 a.m. because the engineering team is based in India. I did a good job, and I put that into my portfolio when the project is around 80% done. Then I started to apply again, but with a very different strategy. So first of all, instead of LinkedIn, I chose Indeed. Second of all, instead of just applying nonstop, I gave myself a 30 minutes per day healthy constraint. If I go above that, I might just go crazy. And third of all, instead of targeting each role, I just mass apply without even looking at the title, the senior level, or the job requirement. And that is how I got in touch with the staffing agency behind the job opening at eBay. So here's what I learned. A lot of tech companies, almost all big tech companies, they have enough design budget, but they don't have enough design headcount. So in order to do the job, they will just outsource a lot to contractors. The contractors may do the same project as those senior designers even, but they don't count as the headcount. And these positions are not really titled in those company websites. You can only find them if you find the staffing agency who have access to them. And that is how I got into eBay. After I got into eBay, everything suddenly makes sense. I was doing amazing project with huge impact and huge visibility. And I was doing a project that design leads and design leaderships are also working on. And I got to see how UX design or product design is really done in big tech. I was really, really shocked at how different real-world UX design is done compared to what it is taught in certificate program schools and boot camps. And if I weren't so passionate about filling in that gap, I'd probably still be working at eBay. But for at least 3 years, and I'm at my 2nd year, my mission is to bridge this education to industry gap for you. Here are some key takeaways from my journey, and I think you can learn from these points. Number 1, client projects will get you a job. No matter how perfect your personal project looks, nothing beats real-world client experience. Number 2, to get client projects, you need both hard skills and soft skills. UX design skills are essential, but you also need product thinking, business sense, client management, marketing, and sales skills. And don't just jump into LinkedIn job page and wish you can find something there. Number 3, when opportunities don't show up, it is for a reason. That period of struggle is pushing you toward another level of personal growth. And number 4, when opportunities finally arrive, they come fast and easy. And probably it's even better than what you expect. Actually, I see that not just in career, I also see that in dating, and I also see that in a lot of other things. So let me know in the comment if you feel the same way. Because for me, I always worked so hard and fell so many times. And then one day I just be like, well, what is the point of stressing out on this anymore? Let me just chill. And I will go into meeting rooms with these with or without you energy, or this abundant energy, whatever you call it. And that is when I get all the opportunities. And number 5, lifelong learning is the key to success. Continue to learn and learn from different resources and practice that too. But don't take any single source of truth as the ultimate truth. There is no right answer in UX design, and there's no one-size-fits-all solution in UX design. I hope my story helped you. And if you want me to help you break into UX design, check out my program called Fast Track UX. Here is the link. In this program, I will help you to bridge the education to industry gap I just mentioned. And it's great if you're serious about this career transition and already have put in some effort into this. If you like this video, you'll probably also like this video. And I'm going to end today's video with this clip of me getting marriage certification with my husband in Toronto City Hall. See you next time!